Hello, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Amanda Mary, and I'd like to take a moment to tell you who this show is for. If you're someone who's curious about alternative medicine, intrigued by traditional healing practices, or ready to tailor your health journey to your unique constitution, then you're in the right place. Here we'll explore how your mind, body, and spirit work together, how diet, environment, and even astrology can influence your well being. This podcast is for those who are ready to question mainstream health narratives, reconnect with nearly forgotten traditions, and take a personalized approach to living well. Together, we'll uncover the fascinating history of healing practices, dive into practical tips, and inspire you to create a healthier, more vibrant life. So, I'd also like to add that I live on a sailboat as an herbalist, and so I like to sprinkle in the unique needs of that community because we can often find ourselves alone and not near emergency services. So, how do we address those issues, especially if we're out in the ocean and we can't just like pull over and call an ambulance, right? So, you'll hear me sprinkle that in also.
The big concern that I saw when I was researching how do I continue living a holistic lifestyle on a boat is there's not many people out there addressing the issues concerning this. And they're very specific because there's strains and there's injuries and there's mental health issues that happen when you're traveling that is not normal to people who just stay home and don't like to do a lot of traveling. I want to address this from the perspective of somebody who studies traditional Western herbalism. I'm not in love with that name because I don't think it really captures the essence of what this is, because it suggests that it's what all of the Western world practices, and it's not true. This is a uniquely American culture, and it combines physiomedicalists and eclectic doctors. Now, these were real doctors who practiced here in America. They had universities, they had textbooks. The physiomedicalists actually were strictly herbalists, and they had their own language and their own way of identifying diseases and matching a person to an herb. And the eclectics were more free. So they mixed in minerals and herbs and homeopathy, and their attitude was more let's use what's best in that circumstance, and they really didn't lock themselves into one thing. So the reason they're not here anymore is because the Rockefellers started the AMA, the American Medical Association, and they had this big campaign. Everybody needs to think like an allopathic doctor, treat everybody the same like an allopathic doctor, and anybody who looked at the body in a different way was outlawed. The physiomedicalists and the eclectic doctors were not the ones using leeches. They were not bloodletting. They were not using weird substances that were highly questionable. They were real, true doctors using holistic practices. And they were almost erased from history. Hippies were the one who helped keep these traditions alive here in America. It's more recently, a lot of people have been digging up the old textbooks from these universities and sharing the knowledge. The knowledge has been put together and it's called Traditional Western Herbalism. But this is American culture. If you are American, this is part of your heritage. I know in my family line, both sides, direct family line, down my mother's side and my father's side, we've actually been here over 400 years. And a lot of stories that are uniquely American have been passed down all the way to me. I really love it when I dig up things that are uniquely American and try to bring it to the light and talk to people who are also interested in these things. There's another one that's amazing, and it's called Southern Folk Medicine, and that one originated out of the Appalachian Mountains. And that one is a beautiful system also, and they have their own unique plants. I currently live in Florida, and 75% of the plants fall under either traditional Western herbalism or Southern folk medicine. The other 25% are not in those traditions because the area is very tropical. The rest of them fall under either Caribbean medicine or TCM, which is Chinese herbal medicine. Now, Chinese herbal medicine has licensing for here in America. Any other type of herbalism does not. Anybody can be an herbalist. When you are going out and seeking an herbalist to help you with the predicament that you're in, whether it's physical, mental, or spiritual issues that you're dealing with, you want to ask them about their education and the style that they use. Most people don't realize they are practicing a European style of herbalism, which is fine. The style that I am practicing, you're going to notice differences right away because it is more subtle and unique because of all the different influences that it's had over our American history. At least 25% of it comes directly from the Native Americans. And because they valued women so highly, traditional Western herbalism has more solutions for women and is very woman centric than any other tradition in the world. And we need to be talking about this tradition more and sharing it more because this is such vital information. Sadly, most of the other traditions are very male oriented, which is good for the men. The men need medicine too, right? There's not enough information for uniquely women issues. So I love traditional Western herbalism for that special place that it has. When you hear me speaking during this podcast, that's the core of where I'm speaking from. I'm lucky to be exposed to so many different ideas here in Florida. You will be hearing me draw from other traditions. And then I also love medical astrology, and that is the OG in natural health, the original system. That is how astrology was originally used. So it is literally the oldest form of medicine and the oldest form of astrology. Now there's things that we've dropped because it was like weird and doesn't match modern thought. There's so much that's invaluable, subtle little things about a person's health can be picked up in a medical astrology chart that I'm not able to pick up right away during a normal interview taking a client just strictly through traditional Western herbalism. So I really appreciate the subtle little things that like can be missed during a normal interview. You'll hear me referencing that also. I really want to address the needs that need to be met for a nomadic lifestyle. At the end of this episode, I'll give you a link that just to help get you started. It's just a little ebook that I wrote. So I want to tell you a little bit about me. So I've been on this path for a very long time. My story actually goes all the way back to 2007 when I had my first child. And my son was born at 27 weeks gestation. And so he had to go to the NICU for the first 3 months of his life. His health was very fragile and very touch and go. And he was really considered on the edge of what's considered viable. They're not even sure he was even 27 weeks. Some doctors thought he may have been more like 25 weeks. So he was tiny. He spent the first 3 months in the NICU and he came home on oxygen and with serious health issues. So if I had to take him out of the house, I would have to take him with these large oxygen tanks, and I just put it in the shopping cart. We'd go shopping, and there was no hiding that my son was clearly sick and on oxygen. He also would randomly stop breathing a lot, which was really scary. I couldn't go back to work because of it, because it would just happen at any time during the day. I was constantly on high alert because I'd have to resuscitate him. And this was a constant issue. So of course I spoke to the doctors about it, and they gave me all these excuses that didn't fit what was happening. Of course they refused monitors for me. An older nurse took compassion on me, and she really taught me how to see signs of struggling, the little minor ones, and she made sure I knew how to resuscitate them. And because she knew that like I wasn't getting approved for the machines other people would get approved for, I was glad that she was firm with me and made sure I knew what I was doing before I took this fragile baby home. During this time, I wasn't physically, mentally, or spiritually in a good place at all. My son's biological father was not a good person. Actually, he was a very dangerous person, and I couldn't see it. Because when you are in an unhealthy space and not seeing yourself and the world around you very clearly, you make unhealthy choices. He wasn't interested in being a father. He really urged me to get an abortion. Didn't want anything to do with him, but he came after me because his mom decided she wanted another chance at being a mom, and all he wanted was a free ride. So he wanted food stamps and welfare and tax write-offs. That's all he wanted. He was interested in. So we battled it out for 3 years in family court. And this whole time, my son is like randomly stopping breathing, and I'm constantly taking him to doctor's appointments. And every 3 months, I'm back in family court battling him. And I did have a TPO against my son's biological father, and he broke that TPO in public. Me and my husband were both there. I did get married, and I'm still married to the same man. And at this child exchange, I was always in a public place. He went insane, started attacking both of us, and my husband used his body to shield my son from the blows. And there were witnesses there, and we went to court, criminal court. He was found guilty because there were witnesses. The judge saw what was going on, because this all happened in Nevada, and Nevada is a very pro father state, and it is almost impossible to sever a father's rights there. I was told by many, many, many lawyers it was impossible, and I wasn't going to win this. The criminal judge not only said this is the first case where the victim and the independent witnesses, whom I was not allowed to speak to, the stories matched perfectly. She'd never seen it before. And in order to help me, she ordered a psychological evaluation. And then I also found out that the biological father had a history of violence against women. The report came back bad. It was just really bad. So I took this psychological evaluation to family court and presented it. The family court judge, thank God, took it into consideration and ordered a psychological evaluation for my son's father. And it came back different and equally just as bad. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was just batshit crazy, is the best way to put it. This is not on a cutesy level. This was on a dangerous level. After he had broken the TPO and attacked us, and my son ended up in the hospital, by the way, I was really fretting about my son's life. I thought family court is just never gonna see the danger that my son is in. It was like it was constantly threatening to die, and I'm desperately trying to keep him alive. And so I'm pacing back and forth, just convinced my son's gonna die, and family court's never gonna see reason. And while I'm pacing, sorry, I'm crying. My soul jumped out of my body. I literally had an out of body experience. And I saw my son as a teenager, as he looked today. He had his curly, dark hair. And I touched him, and I knew he was gonna live. I came back to my body, but it was such a real experience. It wasn't a dream. I don't do drugs. But I really felt like I reached out and touched him. This gave me exactly the information that I needed to focus. And I felt an incredible sense of love and gratefulness. When I walked to court, I went against what everybody was telling me, and I followed my instincts and what I knew they were telling me. So I did not sever my son's biological father's rights. Instead, I asked for full custody, and I said I would like to readdress the issues after my son's biological father got the mental health help that he needed. Now, the judge would have granted me everything and completely cut the father off, but that is what my instincts and my heart was telling me was the right decision to do. I was still I had to stop working, which really hurt. So me and my husband we're down to one income, and we had another child together. A little time later, my son's bio father killed himself because he was facing criminal charges that were very serious. And this allowed me to collect his Social Security. It wasn't a lot of money, but I was able to, it was enough to focus on my son's health and get to the bottom of what was going on with him. Now, my second son had really bad eczema. It was really extreme. I was doing everything the doctors were telling me to do, and absolutely nothing was helping. It just seemed like all fabrics was irritating his skin. I mean, he was bright red. It was really extreme, like, to the point where strangers would approach me and they would say like, he's going to get green if you don't get this under control, as if I was neglecting my son. But I was doing everything the doctors were telling me and nothing was working. One day my mother-in-law came over, and she brought over a bag of organic baby food, and she said, here, try this. And his skin magically cleared up, and it was like this light bulb went off. Okay, my second son can't handle pesticides, and my first son is still dealing with these serious medical issues. We need to make some serious lifestyle changes. And I had remembered a book that I had read in college by Edgar Casey. He had discussed that for most people, going on an alkaline diet will reverse their health conditions, and he also recommended the apple diet to detox. I had to go at a slower pace since money was so tight. And so every time I went to something would run out, I would replace it with a healthier option. And I did that till I got to about 80% of everything being healthy options. That's when I decided to do the apple detox. I didn't do that for my toddlers because they're just toddlers. But me and my husband did the apple diet, and that's where you just eat nothing but apples for 3 days straight. And then when you're done, you eat 2 tablespoons of olive oil to get your guts going again and into accepting regular food. And then you ease yourself back into eating normally, and you starting with a salad, and you work your way back up to meats, which are the heaviest. And then we went on a very strict alkaline diet. I was very faithful to it. And I used Dr. Robert Young's book for that. I don't know if he was aware of Edgar Casey's books, but a lot of doctors actually are, and they're scared to say that that's where they got the root of their knowledge. But Robert Young really set out to prove scientifically why the alkaline diet worked. And it was amazing. My oldest son's health issues reversed so rapidly, it looked like a miracle. I reported this to the pulmonologist, and he thought I was crazy and lying. And so he grilled me. He grilled me about my son's history, medications he was on, and problems he had, trying to catch me in some delusional lie. But I answered everything perfectly. He had to write it down that because there was nothing wrong with him. His O2 stats were perfect. He couldn't hear anything wrong in the lungs, and there was nothing more for him to say. My son had a few more visits with his pulmonologist, and then they finally let me go because they couldn't find anything wrong. I don't know, but by the end of it, he still thought I was crazy, but he couldn't prove me wrong. The reason I went with herbalism is because we had a little homestead in the rural part of Tennessee, and a sweet little kitten, a little too young to be away from her mom, about 3 weeks old, wandered into my yard crying, and she had like her eyes were closed shut with all this gunk in it, and she was just crying for help. So I rushed her down to the local vet, and the vet instructed me on how to buy milk for her and feed her, get help nourish her 'cause she was severely underweight. A couple days later, after that visit, she starts wheezing, and I can hear her wheezing from all the way across the room. And so I called around to get her into a vet, and no vets had any openings. And this was actually a really common issue in the part of Tennessee that I was. I started looking up online, what herbs can I give this cat that's safe? And mullein looked like the best thing I can give her. So I went out into my yard looking, and I found a mullein plant. I had never seen this mullein plant in my yard ever before. It was as if it popped up overnight. And I picked the leaves, started into a tea, mixed a couple of teaspoons into just a little bit of wet food, and she gobbled up the wet food, and she stopped wheezing. I couldn't believe what I saw. That really showed me the power of herbs, and if you pick the correct one, just how quickly they can work, especially if you're working with fresh plant matter. There's rare rules to this where dried is preferable, but you really want fresh. And so when you're tincturing, you really want fresh. And I can get into this in another episode because it's so much more powerful and amazing. But it took me a long time to find a proper teacher that I felt was right for me. I was very picky about this. I did all the things that other people did. Like I bought the books and I was looking stuff up online, and I tried out one teacher, and she had good tips, but she wasn't for me. I finally found Matthew Wood because he wrote a book on pulse evaluation. I believe he has the only one written on it for the Western world that's not Chinese medicine. I knew, okay, somebody who can teach this in book form would be, they have to be the right teacher for me. So I did take professional classes from him. They're really well thought out and well done. There are other teachers out there that teach this that I highly admire, and they're excellent at what they do. I encourage you to look up these different teachers. There's lots of other forms of herbalism out there. Rosemary Gladstar, she's very kitchen based. What can you do with kitchen herbs? And that, for a lot of people, that's the style they want to stick with and the way they want to roll. I really wanted to be good on a clinical level, and that's why I chose Matthew Wood. And he does teach how to assess a patient. Most herbalist programs do not teach that. And it can be hard to teach. I can see why a lot of herbalists don't even want to touch it. But there is legalities involved. Like, I'm not allowed to diagnose you with anything that's considered an allopathic diagnosis, right? So I can't tell you have heart disease. I could see the signs for it, and I can say, you know what? I think you need to go to a doctor and have your heart checked, right? But I can't tell you, oh, you have heart disease, take these herbs. So there is that, but I'm allowed to use the language of our ancestors. That's at least the way what I call it. So I can say that there's energetic imbalances going on, or maybe an organ's not getting enough blood flow. I can see that from your tongue over Zoom. If I see you in person, I can pulse test you and feel your blood and see how your body, the different organs, are reacting to your pulse by taking it. So when you take a person's pulse in traditional Western herbalism, it looks different than like the way a nurse would do it. I don't want to say, oh, all allopathic medicine is evil. But I do want to say that it doesn't work for me. There's countless times I went to the doctor over scary things and they didn't have any solutions that worked for me. And I'll share those stories as they're relevant to the topic that we're on. In a nutshell, antibiotics don't work on me, and pain medicine doesn't work very well either, because I had a lot of health issues growing up, and my body just now rejects that stuff. And so I'll get all the side effects and none of the benefits. And that really doesn't make sense. I really felt I need to be really, really good at this because I can't find the help that I need. There's lots of people doing this stuff now. There really isn't anybody out there discussing how to live this lifestyle as a nomad, because I'm Sagittarius rising, and that means that it's in my first house, and that's the constellation that was rising on the horizon when I was born. And we are famous for wanting to explore the world and see what's out there, and we learn really well that way. How do I honor that aspect of my personality while staying healthy? I plan on taking you on a journey, and I think that might be the easiest way to go about this. So my next episode, we're going to focus on how to know what your constitution is. And I'll do this from the perspective of traditional Western herbalism, because if you understand what your constitution is, you understand how your body metabolizes food and how you respond to diseases. And this helps you pick out a diet that's right for you. There is no one diet that's good for everybody. Like, oh, I roll my eyes when I see that on the internet. Just stop. Understand what your constitution is, and you can learn so much just by knowing that. We can discuss diets, but there's always a different diet out there, and everybody has an allergy or sensitivity to something, and you can just take that baseline diet and tweak it for you. Make it right for you. And then the next episode, we will get into the importance of mental health. What are the tools that you can use to help your mental health? Picking out a professional to help you if you feel you need help, and how to pick out herbs. So, because my approach is different, I'm never trying to suppress anything. My focus is always support, with the end result being you don't need the herbs anymore. And then I want to do a third episode on how spirituality plays a role in your health, give you examples of how this has worked in different people's lives with different traditions, and hopefully you will walk away with concrete things that you can apply in your own life, and maybe recognize little things that you didn't realize they're not chemical imbalances. They're issues that you can address. We'll dig deeper into that. There's no way for me to touch on every little thing with just 3 episodes, right? But we'll do like an overview, and then after that we can start digging deeper into these issues. And I would like to direct you to a little ebook that I wrote. It's not overly long, but it's to give you examples of how to organize your herbs and minerals and all that good stuff that you want to carry around, and how to organize it into one bag. Also, I left 10 herbs that I thought you should consider keeping in your bag, and I write out why. This is very individualized medicine. So when you're reading this, take what's going to work for you and the way that you live your nomadic lifestyle, and go ahead and leave the rest. And the other bonus to downloading this ebook is you will be put on my mailing list. So once every 2 weeks, I'll let you know when a new episode is out. But even better, being on that list means you also have my email address. So you can email me with questions that you have that you'd like me to answer. Or if you'd like a consultation, like a medical astrology chart drawn, or just a traditional herbalist consultation, whatever it is that you're comfortable with, you can go either way. I'm excited about doing this. It took me a long time to map out how do I want to do this, how do I address these issues, because this is a niche that needs to be addressed. And I'm coming from traditional Western herbalism. Like, I find that subject so exciting, and I love learning new things. I love it when new textbooks get dug up, and then the community shares new amazing techniques that are long forgotten, and we can start applying them and see that do they work through our modern eyes. I love the subject. I think it's amazing. There's a lot of amazing teachers out there that do teach this. You just have to look. Enjoy your travels. I hope they're amazing, and I hope to see you guys around. Have a wonderful day. Bye.